You're visiting the Mom Next Door and our stories of faith. I'm glad you dropped by for a visit. Please stay a while and hear what the Lord has done in the lives of moms just like you and me.
How many of us are looking for a mothering example? Someone who is perhaps just a little further down the road than us, can encourage us, can say like, hey, this is the way, walk in it. I have some things I've picked up along the way, and I'd love to share them with you. And I'm so excited because Marci is here with us today to do just that. And we are going to jump into probably the empty nest phase of motherhood, but I'm going to let her introduce her family and maybe part of what brought her to this stage of life. She is a woman of many talents: photography, what did I say? Photography, yes. Photography, cooking. She's a writer, has so many skills. And so I am so excited that you get to meet my friend Marci. All right, go ahead, Marci. You just jump in.
Okay, well, it's so much fun to have be on the Zoom call. I mean, I feel like we're just kind of at the table having coffee and cookies or scones or whatever we're going to eat. But I, my husband and I just celebrated our 41st, 41 years of
Wow.
marriage. So it's been a long haul there. But
Yeah.
so we've really been thinking a lot about like our life. We have 6 children. We have 9 grandchildren. Well, one that's on the way, and then another one that we just found out about. So we have 6 kids, but our kids are kind of spread out a little bit. But then now we are living in Knoxville, Tennessee with our grandkids and 2 of our kids, and we're just loving it. So you never know. The seasons change, the seasons come and go. And I started writing a long time. Mostly I'm an article writer, but I do have a couple of book projects. But I really just I've loved being a mom. Like that was one of my top things. If I could, I was just telling somebody, I have a lot of regrets. There's some things I really regret in life, like not finishing my college degree. It's a regret. Trying to use the dog clippers on the neighbor boy's hair is a regret that I'll always carry with me. And
I'm sure he will too.
and then trying a tie-dye project that went awry. But there's some things I don't regret, and that is for sure being a mom and dedicating my life to raising those kids. But I do have to say, I did write the book called Empty Nest: Strategies to Help Your Kids Take Flight. And one of the things somebody asked me afterwards, like, so do you think you should come up with a sequel now? And I said, no, I feel worse than when I started it because I should have written a prequel. I should be talking to moms when their kids are 7, not 17. And by the time these kids get to be 17 or 18, the moms are so frantic because their kids are leaving. And it would have been so much more helpful to start talking to them when their kids were 7, not 17. And especially when you hit that, here we are on summer break and pretty soon school's going to be starting. And if you don't have the kid leaving right now, there's a lot of moms who are going into their year of lasts, last football game, last prom, last pictures, last group photo. And it is such a hard time because moms, when we find out we're pregnant, they give you the What to Expect When You're Expecting book, and you get a little diaper bag and you get all this stuff. But when your kids get launched into the world, you get nothing. It's kind of like
true.
It's kind of like this rite of passage that nobody really talked about. And then all of a sudden you're like, what do you mean you're leaving? And we just got you trained.
And the cards for graduation go to them. They don't go to us. Right.
No.
So it's like we put on all the effort and we're urging and prompting them forward and sometimes pulling them onward. And we get to the end and it's like, it's over. Like it's over.
Well, and not only is it over, it's kind of a forced retirement. So I am thankful when our youngest graduated from high school, my husband did give me a strand of pearls as a retirement gift. Like, this is you put in all these years of service. There's a big gap between our oldest and our youngest. So we had one in driver's training, one in potty training at the same time. And it just goes so quick. but I really think the biggest thing is we have to view our kids with the hands of stewardship and not ownership. And
Yeah.
that is the biggest thing I think that especially moms struggle
Mhm.
with, is because they feel like they have ownership,
Mhm.
but they don't. You have
Yeah.
stewardship. And that means that those kids, you have raised them to adulthood so that they
Yeah.
can leave the nest and
Mhm.
fly. And
Mhm.
if you're holding on to them the whole time, then they're never going to get to do what they are created to do. And actually, you're not going to get to do what you were created to do either. And so motherhood, it's hard because it is that forced retirement.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's a tough time.
Okay, so your book about empty nest,
Hmm.
is it more about launching your children or is it more about me as a mom adjusting to the empty nest?
So it's more about launching. So it's kind of
Mhm.
funny because I wrote all these things like siblings matter, military minded, parenting solo, because there's a lot of parents who are single parents and it affects them different. And so I just
Huge.
interviewed and had all those different elements of when people are launching their kids, college
Uh-huh.
bound. But then I
Yeah.
got to the last chapter and it was like, I feel like there's still something I haven't shared. And
Hmm.
so I shared this story about this incident where we had hatched out we had gotten the caterpillars, the extended, it looks like a round cylinder
Yeah,
thing.
like a laundry basket that pops up
Yes.
kind of thing with, yeah.
Yep.
Hmm.
And then you get the larva, or the
Hmm.
caterpillars, and you put them in there and they're eating, and pretty soon they set on a stick and they start doing what they're doing, and you can
Yeah.
kind of see the wings,
Yeah.
underneath that thin um encasing.
Covering. Yeah.
And so then one time we had already done all that stuff. Our kids were gone. I think they went to vacation Bible school. So I was by myself, and it was just a brief moment of silence in the house. And I looked over and I saw one of them start to wiggle. And I'm like, oh my
Hmm.
gosh, this is it. Pretty soon it splits open. That
Hmm.
butterfly emerges. It looks like it's got an old suit jacket that maybe was shoved into a suitcase, still damp. Its wings are
Hmm.
all crumpled. And so
Hmm.
it gets out and it's flapping its wings. And pretty soon the the wings become big and it starts floating around. And I think we had like
Hmm.
5 of those caterpillars. Well, the last caterpillar to hatch was really struggling. I mean, it was really having a hard time. And I was thinking, gosh, you just want to get in there and like
Can I
help
open the
it.
cage and,
I need
yeah.
to help you. I'm here for
Hmm.
you, little caterpillar. Let me help you. And I just really felt like we want to do that with our kids. But if
Hmm.
you go in there and you start helping, that butterfly is never going to do what it needs to do. It's
Hmm.
never going to float. It's never going to fly. It's going to be a grub with wrinkled wings, because it's never going to be able to survive. And
Hmm.
so we want that for our kids. But it was kind of like a settling time for me, because it was almost like the Lord said, and that's why sometimes I allow you to struggle. Sometimes we think that it's all about the Lord gave us these kids so that we can raise them. But sometimes the Lord gives us these kids so he can finish raising us. And there's things that
Hmm.
he wants for us, but we have to work, we have to struggle. And sometimes that struggle is in letting your kids go so they can do what they're intended to do. And you
Hmm.
can keep doing what the Lord has for you to do.
Hmm.
And so that was like the biggest lesson. So in the book, there's all these chapters, and then the last one is just me, the Lord, and a jar full of caterpillars, because it is about the mom, and it is about the parents, and it's about having to let go and trusting that the Lord's got a plan for these kids, but He's also got
Hmm.
a plan for you. He's also got a plan for me, and it is difficult. And I wrote the book when our oldest ones were leaving, because I thought I don't need to know what to do with an empty room. I need to do what do you do when part of your heart walks out the front door? But then when we moved from California to Tennessee, we left our youngest son there. Like, he was turning 20. He's like, I'm staying here. And so
Hmm.
for us to move without any kids, we'd had kids in the house for 34 years. and then all of a sudden it's like nothing. And to me, I mean, that hit hard, even though I had thought about it, I'd written about it. And I remember one day John came home and I was just crying. He's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "I feel like I wrote this book to my future self. Like
Mm.
it's going to be okay, but boy, it's just there's that emptiness." And I told him, I said, "I think I've already lived the best years of my life. Like what's left?" And so he's like, the Lord's got something for you different now. But I mean, it's
Mhm.
hard to not have your whole identity, especially if you've been involved with their schooling and you've just been immersed
Mhm.
in raising kids, and then all of a sudden they're gone. And it's a little unsettling, and like, what what more could I be doing that would be as valuable as raising kids? But the Lord does have something for you. It's just,
Mhm.
this is a different season. It's a different season for your kids. They're launching. It's a different season for you too. And the other thing is, not all the kids launch the same. So and I
Yeah.
talked to parents about that. Like some kids, some kids you're just a hot mess because you love them so much, you miss them. And then there's some kids that you're crying different tears over.
Yeah. Yeah.
And those are the tears we don't talk about very much, but those are the
Yeah.
tears because you're like, there is nothing left for them to learn here until they get sick of the smell of pigs and
Yeah.
they decide they're gonna. So those are the tears
Mhm.
that sometimes we don't, as Christian parents, we don't talk about,
Yep.
but those are the tears that actually are the more bitter ones. And that's hard. That's a hard spot. And we've had we've had tears on both sides, and
Mhm.
that's a hard one. So, and then you wonder, like, did I do, what could I have done different?
Mhm.
And then you just think, what did I do wrong? And then pretty soon you're thinking, did I do anything right? And I
Yep.
should have just been a Walmart greeter or something instead of all this. But you know what? The Lord is the one who's in control of
Mhm.
our kids' lives too.
Mhm.
Like we just have to trust the hands of God for that kind
Mhm.
of grief. So,
And you mentioned the what to expect when you're expecting book, right? And
mhm,
there's so many guides to early motherhood. I think there's a lot of people that write books or speak about early motherhood, even the middling years at women's events. And you've got like support group, like it's called Momco now. Instead of Mothers of Preschoolers, it's
uh,
called Momco. And there's all these different structured books and things. But when you get into the adult years and they have launched, there's a void. And I think that, yeah, there's probably some books of parenting adult children, but like you said, like the suffering of motherhood, the hard, gut-wrenching portions of motherhood does not get talked about because we want to protect the relationship between us and
mhm,
our children. We it is a potential judgment against my parenting when I have a child that goes prodigal. If people listen to my podcast regularly, they know that I have a prodigal and that one has been estranged from us for 4 years by their choice, not ours.
mhm,
And it's really hard to find your support system. It's hard to find some sort of encouragement along the way with that. So I think we process all of these emotions in these latter years, and it affects our even our grandparenting. It affects like, are we going to step up to the plate and be, the Naomi and the Elizabeth who mentors a younger person, or are we gun shy? Are we like,
mhm,
you know what, I have to reevaluate my own parenting and maybe I messed some things up, so now I'm just going to close my mouth. And so I think that it is a very unique time period that's probably untapped for that's why I said at the beginning, we need mentors. Need
mhm.
somebody like you a little further down the road to encourage in that. I don't know if you have a response for that. I kind of have another question looming in my mind, kind of, but
Well, I think something that you said too, like there's so many dynamics, and we have a son who is, he's made some
Different choices.
decisions
Hmm.
like I just think that there's one of the statistics I heard was that there's 1 in 4 families where there's a child who's estranged.
Hmm.
That's a pretty
Probably.
huge, that's a pretty huge number.
Yeah.
And these are not kids who were dropped off at an orphan. This is not like the boxcar kids. These are not
Right.
kids that have been abandoned and orphaned. These are kids from good families that really love them
Hmm.
and would, and then it's like,
And there's
no,
a
you were
desire
targeted.
for a relationship. So
Yes.
it's not like we have written them off. We desire the relationship. It's just
Yeah. They
not,
weren't
yeah.
raised by wolves, like,
Yeah.
and you just think, gosh, were all the hours worth it? And then
Hmm.
you have to just go back to saying you did everything that you needed to do. And I feel like sometimes that passage where Paul and Silas are in the jail, there's there's the worshiping going on. They just were beaten by the jailer, and then the earthquake happens, and they're about the their chains fall off. The jailer runs in. He's about
Hmm.
ready to commit Harry Carey because he knows his life is over. And
Hmm.
Paul says, "Wait, stop. We're here." And I just
Hmm.
think about that instance because here they didn't even have to say anything. But then what happens? The jailer takes them home. He binds up their wounds. The whole family gets saved. And
Hmm.
I just think that sometimes when we do have a prodigal too, we don't know what's going to happen 3 verses over. We just
Hmm.
have to be obedient in the verse we're in. And
Yeah.
the Lord knew what was going to happen. I mean, they could have just been whipped and put back into chains, but
Yeah.
he trusted with the moment that it happened, not with bitterness, not with revenge, but just trusting that, you know what, God's got this
Hmm.
and I don't have to worry
Hmm.
about it. And as hard
Hmm.
as it is to think about your kids, sometimes if you've got one who's maybe on the fence, or like I said, I'm just praying he gets sick of the smell of pigs.
Hmm.
Um, you're kind of at that spot, like, but I'm just going to trust the Lord because I don't
Yeah.
see the whole picture.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to turn my back. I'm not going to turn my heart. I'm just going to be faithful and pray. And
Hmm.
it's easy though for the enemy to come in and just say, you screwed this up big time.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we're accountable to the Lord for what we've done with our kids, the loving,
Hmm.
the best we could do. And all we
Yeah.
can do is wait and wait, hopefully with our eye to the horizon.
Great
But
expectation.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, when you also were talking about, so God has like a new calling on your life now as our children grow and they leave the home. Um, the dynamics in our home change, the time management that we have, uh, now I don't have an empty nest. My oldest is 30, but my youngest is 13. So it's going to be a while until I have an empty nest. And even that, it may not be empty because my daughter is building a house across the driveway.
Oh,
So we will probably have visitors every day for the rest of my life,
mhm.
well, which is fantastic. But I notice with some things that I'm doing and then friends as we start to enter this phase of like, wow, I see that God is giving me this opportunity for ministry or for work to do something else. There's a tension in the balance of I'm still a mom. I'm still a mom forever. And they're still my first ministry as my children, my family, my grandchildren. Yet there's this other thing that the Lord's calling me to do. And it's hard to navigate maybe the verbiage, how to explain that to our children, how to help them release us into the thing that God's calling us to, yet also remind them that we're still available,
Mhm.
maybe just not 12 hours a day.
Mhm.
Have you navigated that yourself? Have you seen that with other people and have ideas for that?
Well, I think one of the things too, sometimes moms, especially, I think there's a lot of pressure with social media and they see all the things that these other moms are doing, and they're on all these podcasts, about being a good mom and everything, and they feel this pressure. But really, I don't think that that get something that doesn't get talked about is sometimes I feel like there's a guilt if they don't do it a certain way. And
Yeah.
so I just feel like there's so much pressure for these younger moms, and they're just wanting to achieve this. If they're not working outside the home, they need to have the perfect in home. And they've got all of these voices going on. And I just think back, have you ever lived in a farming community?
Yeah. I
So
mean,
when
yeah. Mhm.
so we lived in Minnesota for 9 years. And one of the things I loved about watching the farming community is that they are digging up the ground, they're planting the ground,
Mhm.
the crops are growing, and they're harvesting. They don't do it all at the same time.
Mhm.
When they're digging up the ground, getting ready to plant, they are thinking to the season ahead, but they're not in the season behind them. When
Mm.
they are when they're um, harvesting, they're thinking about the season ahead, but they're fully in the season they're in. And I think that
Yeah.
that's kind of an important thing, is to fully be in the season you're in without trying to sprint ahead and without holding on too much to what's behind you. It's
Mm.
okay to lament some of that, like, okay, well, remember that was little, but we can just let go of some of that and just be in the season we're in. And
Mm.
one of the things I think is that moms sometimes forget that it's okay to have goals and it's okay to have dreams, and you need to be planting those things. You don't have to be in the season ahead,
Mhm.
but you can be preparing for that season. And I think it's really important to kind of be preparing for whatever that is going to be next, because you are going to have an empty nest. You are going to have extra time and extra space. And you
Mhm.
don't want to be, when you're supposed to be harvesting corn, is not the time to start planting it. And so you need to be thinking about the seasons ahead. And one of the things that helped me was, when our kids were younger. I mean, the older ones were already teenagers, and my sister had signed us up for a sprint triathlon, which was like, well, I'm a good swimmer, and I hadn't ridden a bicycle. I mean, I think the only bike I ever had the Schwinn, the with the big
Banana
handles
seat
and the
and
banana
uh-huh.
seat. Yeah.
Mhm.
And then I thought, well, if I have to stop, drop, and roll the last half mile of the run, I still get the t-shirt, so I'm good. And so every day I would get up really early in the morning. The littles would be sleeping. The older ones, I would say, okay, I'll be back in 30 minutes. I'll be back in 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And I would go work. I would go exercise, or I would ride the bike.
Yeah.
And then finally the day of the race came, and my teenage daughter, she saw me and I'm getting all my gear together. She's like, gosh, Mom, I'm kind of proud of you. She's like, you're
Mm.
not even really athletic. So I'm like, well, I'm kind of proud of me too. She goes, you've worked really hard for this moment right now. You've spent all summer long working
Mhm.
on these little skills, and today's the day. And I told her, I said, I'm proud of me too, but I
Yeah.
want you to think about how you feel about me right now.
Mm.
How do you feel about me? Because someday you're going to be the mom, and it's not going to be a sprint triathlon. It could be something different.
Mhm.
But you're going to have to know that it's okay to work a little bit at a time, to have a
Mhm.
goal, and to feel good about when you accomplish that. And
Mhm.
so she still remembers that day of just telling
Mhm.
her, someday you're going to be the mom. You're going to have to work hard. And it doesn't have to happen right this second, but it's something you could be working towards. And then when it
Mhm.
happens, um, everyone, you will feel proud about that. So I think
Mhm.
that that's the thing. I think moms feel like it's selfish if they are in a book club, or it's selfish to do this. But I always go back to, what do you want your children to do? Do you want your daughter to say, nope, I can never do anything until our kids are
Mhm.
raised? Or do you want your own daughter to feel like she can keep growing and keep
Mhm.
learning and take up an instrument or whatever it is? And so I don't know, have you ever had to do something difficult that you've had to work towards?
Well, what yes, I mean, this whole thing with me starting a podcast and
Hmm.
starting writing and all that, I did not do what you counseled your daughter to do, right? I did not, and I was just at a baby shower, and we all had to write down like advice for this new mom. And you know what was top of my mind? I said, continue doing something creative that you enjoy, that builds your your skill set,
Hmm.
because I realized I never did that. I'm like, extreme sports? No, I was extreme parenting. It was like boom.
Hmm.
Of course I had 9 children, so that's part of it, right? I mean, they
Hmm.
just demand quite a bit of food and all the messes and
Care.
things. So that is definitely part of it. But I was not intentional to prepare for the day that they would be gone. I prepared them to be adults. My philosophy as raising them was, I am not raising children, I'm raising future adults. And so we trained them, to do so many things. But
Hmm.
I had not spent time training myself. And I do think that it's made this transition a little bit bumpy, in that I'm having to pull away from, you guys are my 100% focus. And God has called me to do, the podcasting and the writing and some of those things. And I'm so excited about it. And they're kind of like, yeah, I don't know about them. Like, that doesn't really line up to like what we thought was going to happen. And to the
Hmm.
point last year, those who have been listening since I started in 2020 know that I quit last year. I dropped it all. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know how to make the transition. And so that's a question. At the beginning here, you mentioned giving advice to someone at when their children are 7 years old, to
Hmm.
prepare them for when their child is 17. And that was, something I'm so intrigued by. I guess if you were to fill out a card of advice, maybe not at a baby shower, maybe at a baby shower.
Hmm.
Maybe, wouldn't it be cool if we did mom showers like halfway through? like,
Oh yeah.
like when your children are 9, you
Yeah.
just earned a mom shower. Like,
Yeah.
not with water, but with, like,
Yeah.
let's have a party. You have hit the halfway point.
Yeah.
And if we were to pass out little cards at that shower for mama and say, I want to just encourage you along the way and put some wind in your sails, because you're halfway there.
Yeah.
Yeah, what would you say there?
Well, so there'd be two things. Like our daughter, when she was pregnant, I said, do you want me to give you some advice? She's like, yes, yes, I do. I said, okay, so this is my mother advice for you. You are going to screw this up. She was like, what? I said, yes, you're going to get to church and their shoe would have dropped off on the way to the car. They're going to get gum stuck in their hair, and you're going to be eating sometimes cornflakes for dinner.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, when they pat your face with their sticky fingers and you've just tucked them in and you love them, and they just look up at you, you have done a great job. So
Mm.
all the other stuff that you think is important, you're going to screw that up. And that's the stuff that doesn't matter. So
Mm.
take some of that pressure off. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to have the perfect birthday parties for them. You don't have to, like, everything that is pressure on you that you think
Yeah.
has to be perfect, you're going to screw that up. But at the end of the
Hmm.
day, what matters is that you're on your knees before the Lord, like, okay, I just help me do this better. And you just
Yeah.
count and make sure you have the same amount of kids at the end of the day that you had at the beginning of the day. And you're like, okay, I'm going to screw this up. But you know what? I've done my best. And that's
Yeah.
all you can do. Part of the empty nest is realizing that now you are stuck with the person 24 hours a day, the person you married. And
Mm.
that's a huge change, because, and I told my husband, I said, when these kids leave, it's going to be a huge change for us, because
Mhm.
all this time you've gone to work, we've had a good schedule, but now my job is totally drastically changing. And so what
Yeah.
I encourage gals is you need to stay interesting. Always be learning something new. Because if
Mhm.
you become boring to yourself, you're going to be boring to your spouse.
Mm.
And you'll also be boring to your adult children. So I just want to encourage them to stay interesting,
Mhm.
learn something new, always be, even if it's taking up a small like knitting or whatever it is, something that you're having to do that you can do small, like maybe it's welding. I don't know, whatever is on your list,
Yeah.
um, do that thing
Try
because
it. If you don't like it, try something else.
yeah,
Keep
yeah,
keep rolling something out. Okay.
yeah, whatever it is, you need to take the time to learn something new and invest in yourself. That's not saying, oh, I just need all this me time. It's just staying interesting. So to just
Okay.
grow personally. And I
Mm.
just think it is hard to find the margins. I mean, we have six, you have nine.
Yeah.
You know how it is. You get to the end of the day and you're like, what are the things that didn't get done? And the
Mm.
list is so long sometimes. But maybe it's something like learning a new language and you're just listening to different things in the car while you're carpooling, or
Mhm.
where can you carve out 15 minutes a day.
Mhm.
And when Nate went into the service, I took up stress knitting. I only know one stitch. Only know how to make one thing, but it's like, instead of just worrying, I'm just going to do something creative. And so
Mhm.
I think sometimes we feel guilty maybe by doing something like that, being in a book
Mhm.
club, reading a book. And um, it's okay to stay interesting because someday the kids are all going to leave and you're going to have to live with the person that you married all those years ago, and then you're going to have to find new common ground. So that's some advice I would give.
And live with yourself, right?
Yeah.
And live
Mhm.
with yourself. And multiple times during this conversation, you have um, mentioned perfection and like chasing after perfect. And now you just mentioned looking at your list of all the things that did not get done and evaluating at the end of the day. Now, that if we did not get things done, we could all of a sudden go in perfection mode like, okay, now I have to get everything done. I don't have time to be interesting.
Mhm.
I don't have time to learn things because I have to get all these things done. And I
Mhm.
think I'm looking back at myself and those lists that I lived by, right? And I am just thinking how important it is to scrub out that word perfect and perfection from our
Mhm.
lives. Um,
Mhm.
because we live on this side of heaven
Yeah.
and we live in skin. We're human.
Mhm.
We're not going to be perfect. And we would
Mm-mm.
not require that of somebody else. And God does not require that of us. More compassion for ourselves, for myself. I don't have to be perfect, right?
Mm.
Um,
Well,
that's a
and
huge
I
lesson.
think something that used to get thrown around quite a bit is multitasking.
Hmm.
And so there was um, this thought that, oh well, we could be doing multitasking. They're really good at multitasking, but then now they've said actually that's not really a thing. Like you can't multi-focus. You might be able
Hmm.
to multitask if you are reading a book while you're on the treadmill or something like that, or listening to an audiobook while you're doing something else. But as far as really multi-focusing, we really can't. So I feel like if we want to
Hmm.
stay focused with what is the most important thing, keeping first things first, then we have
Hmm.
to really stop and focus and not be so, you know, there have been so many times I've thought, gosh, if I could just do this, this, and this, maybe if I could just wake up 15 minutes earlier and maybe not go to bed like ever
Hmm.
for the rest
Yeah,
of my like
be so much more efficient.
I could get so much done, and you might be able to pull an all-nighter and then you're paying for it for the next 3 days, and so is your family. So everything you got done kind of didn't get done. And so I
Yeah.
just think the list making and then also productivity. Like, were you productive? How much did you get done? And I know that my parents kind of were raised in that generation of your
Yeah.
value was tied to productivity. So if
Yeah.
you weren't producing, then you didn't, that was your value. So I think as moms, then it was, if we're not doing all these things, if we're not doing the homemade lemonade at the lemonade stand so we could teach our kids about this, then we're not doing something right. And that's actually not true at all. Like we don't
Mm-hmm.
have to be overly productive so that we
Mm-hmm.
can check off a list. God's not keeping that list and saying, oh, if only you had just tried a little harder, you would have gotten more done. But he
Mm-hmm.
knows. I mean, when you have 9 kids, you're just time managing for everybody.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. The productivity pressure from an older generation, but now I kind of feel like there's a pushback against the productivity, but yet I think it's just repackaged because it's on Instagram as beautiful things and having all the experiences and not wanting to miss out. And so that actually is productivity just remarketed. But what like it's the things that maybe don't allow you to experience joy. They don't allow you to walk in the fullness of God's purpose and calling on your life in the, as Ephesians 2:10 I believe is in the work, the things that he has prepared in advance for you to do. We get so darn distracted, you
yeah.
know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So whew, 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 whew. I think there's been a lot of little tidbits that we all can grasp from this conversation. I will enjoy going back and listening to it myself and maybe making a few note cards to put on my mirror to remind me.
Well, and the other thing too is that we, just like our kids have different learning styles, we also have different learning styles. And so I think that we need to give ourselves grace in that, because I remember getting it was a huge binder. It was back, when you would just buy the physical thing. It was this huge binder of everything you need to know to get your life organized and to be a better mom, and you could run your own Airbnb with all this information. And it was like exhaustive. And
Yeah.
it was like, you can take this binder, money back guarantee. And it was like, back in the day, it was like, wow, this is kind of expensive, but if this gets my life organized, I'm all for it. And then you could take the pages that would most help you, and you could copy those off and fill that binder with those pages.
Mm-hmm.
I took all the pages out and I lost them before I even copied them. So not only did the pages not help me, I couldn't even get my money back. And I think that that's the other thing, is just like our kids have different learning styles, we have different learning styles. And so
Yeah.
when we see like, oh, they just have this wipe off board and it has all their stuff and they put the stickers in there and that works for them, just because they have, just like our kids are individual, we're individual too. And
Yeah.
it's okay to find out what works best for you, because I think sometimes we fall into that trap too, like, but they're
Yeah.
doing it this way and this
Yeah.
works for them. Well, you might be a different kind of a person that just doesn't connect well with that
Yeah.
system. So, and
Yeah.
that's okay.
Freedom in operating in the way that the Lord created each one of us.
Yes. And the fact that God's got a plan for our lives, just like
Mm-hmm.
he's got a plan for our kids,
Mm-hmm.
whether they're not launched yet, whether they're launching or whether they've already launched. The Lord sees you and he knows you, and he's got a plan for your life, just like he's got a plan for your kid's life. So we just have to trust that plan is perfect.
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned one of the books that you've written. I'm going to link that in the show
Oh, sure.
notes. I'm also going to tell people website, socials, and all that. But would you verbally just share that with us so those auditory learners will get it that way?
So I have Empty Nest Strategies to Help Your Kids Take Flight. And that's one of the books that I have. I also have Lakeside Retreat, 40 Devotions by a Restful Shore, that if you just need a little staycation, that's a great one too. So anyway,
Okay,
but
and your website.
marciseither.com.
Okay, and your socials are also Marci Seither.
Yeah, yeah. If
Okay.
you just type in Marci Seither, and it's Seither, then you'll find me. I'm pretty easy to find.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us today in our little neighborhood of the Mom Next Door. Would you pray for us as we head out into our week?
Okay. Dear Lord, I just thank you so much for this time with Pam. I just thank you for these moms that are maybe in the messy middle. Maybe they're just getting started on their motherhood journey, or maybe they're looking at this year of lasts with their kids as they get ready to launch out into the world. I just pray that you'd help us to remember that we are stewards of our kids, that not owners, and that just like you have a plan for our kids, you've got a plan for us. I just pray you'd be there for these moms who maybe are struggling with this balance and this new dynamic in their family. Thank you, Lord, for your love for us, your plans for us. They're always good. They're always perfect. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right, friends, thanks for joining us. And you can visit with Marcy and I online, all the other places. We'd love to
Yep.
meet you again. Bye
Yep.
bye.
I hope that you've been encouraged or challenged in your faith today, and that something we discussed prompts you to grow deeper in your walk with the Lord. If it has, make sure you tell a friend so they can grow along with you. And if you or a friend would like to be a guest and share about God's faithfulness in your life, please email me at podcast@tendingfields.net. Because when we tell of God's faithfulness, we never run out of stories.
Whatever is true, whatever is known.